Admiral Corrin's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained frustration as she studied the sensor readings. The vessel approaching the luminous Federation's border station defied everything she knew about spacefaring civilizations. Its hull was an ungainly mass of metal plates and exposed structural beams, with visible welding marks marring its surface. Crude chemical thrusters periodically belched actual flame into space, adjusting its course with all the grace of a wounded animal. "Impossible," she muttered, her crystalline appendages clicking against the command console. No species could achieve faster-than-light travel while still using such primitive materials. First observer Telia, her most trusted advisor, floated closer to examine the readings. "The energy signatures are unmistakable, Admiral. They somehow achieved FTL using nuclear fission and mechanical compression. It's unprecedented." "Unprecedented is a diplomatic way of saying dangerous," Corrin responded. The vessel was massive, nearly twice the length of their largest ships. Where luminous Federation vessels were elegant spheres of crystalline energy matrices, this thing looked like it had been assembled in a shipyard that hadn't discovered basic energy manipulation. "They're hailing us," Telia reported, "using radio waves." Corrin's form flickered with amusement. "At least they can communicate. Let's hear it." "Luminous Federation Border Station. This is Captain Marcus Thompson of the United Earth vessel Indomitable." A calm human voice crackled through their receivers, requesting permission to approach and discuss trade possibilities. Before Corrin could respond, the station's threat detection systems screamed to life. 3 vessels dropped out of hyperspace, their familiar crystalline forms twisted into jagged weapons platforms. Pirates, using stolen Federation technology. "Well," Corrin observed dryly, "at least we won't have to worry about our primitive visitors much longer. Those ships are running our latest weapon systems." The pirate vessels moved with practiced precision, their phase-shifted weapon systems capable of bypassing any known defense. Their first salvo struck the human vessel dead center, and did absolutely nothing. "Fascinating," Telia whispered, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "Their hull, it's absorbing the energy somehow. Look at the heat dispersion patterns." The human vessel's response was anything but elegant. Physical projectiles, actual chunks of accelerated metal, erupted from multiple points along its hull. The pirate vessel's advanced shields, designed to handle energy weapons, proved surprisingly ineffective against what amounted to a cloud of hypersonic shrapnel. "Captain Thompson to Federation Station." The radio crackled again, somehow sounding even calmer than before. "We appear to have a mutual problem. Request permission to demonstrate some additional capabilities." Corrin watched in stunned silence as the ungainly human vessel executed a maneuver that should have torn it apart. Those primitive chemical thrusters fired in complex patterns, spinning the massive ship faster than any mechanical system should allow. More projectiles launched, but these were different. They detonated in space, creating expanding clouds of superheated plasma and metallic debris. "They're turning space itself into a weapon," Telia observed, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her shock. "The pirates can't phase shift through that much physical interference." The first pirate vessel's shields failed under the onslaught of crude but effective human weapons. Its crystalline hull, designed for energy efficiency rather than physical resilience, cracked under impacts it was never meant to handle. "Federation Station." Thompson's voice came again. "Those ships are using your technology, which means they probably have your command codes. We're detecting quantum encryption algorithms we can't crack quickly. Would you mind providing override authorization? We'd hate to damage them more than necessary." Corrin found herself approving the request before she fully processed it. The human vessel's next attack wasn't kinetic at all. Instead, it transmitted Federation shutdown codes directly into the pirates' command systems. The remaining hostile ships went dark, drifting helplessly in space. "Primitive," Thompson commented, and Corrin could hear the smile in his voice. "Doesn't always mean simple. Permission to dock and assist with prisoner transfer." As she watched the human vessel approach, its scared and pitted hull bearing witness to countless similar battles, Corin realized that her understanding of technological progress might need serious revision. These humans hadn't failed to develop advanced technology. They'd chosen a different path entirely, one that emphasized resilience over elegance. "First observer," she said quietly, "prepare a full briefing for the Federation Council. I believe our definition of advanced civilization requires immediate updating." The Indomitable's docking clamps engaged with a distinctly unsubtle mechanical clunk, and Corin prepared to meet a species that had somehow achieved interstellar travel through sheer stubborn engineering. This, she suspected, was going to be a very interesting first contact indeed. Chief Engineer Ravi Patel couldn't help but smile as he watched the crystalline forms of the Federation engineers recoil from his engine room. Their elegant sensor appendages twitched with what he assumed was either horror or fascination. He wasn't quite sure which. "This is your primary power generation system?" Lead Engineer Vex asked, her translucent form pulsing with barely contained distress. "Actual nuclear fission, with mechanical turbines. And good old-fashioned steam," Ravi confirmed, patting the massive reactor housing with obvious affection. "Can't hack steam pressure. Can't jam it with fancy quantum fields either." The Federation engineers had arrived to assist with repairs following the pirate encounter, clearly expecting to find a primitive vessel barely holding together. Instead, they found themselves confronting engineering principles that challenged their fundamental understanding of technology. "But the efficiency losses," Vex began, "are completely irrelevant," Ravi interrupted, pulling up a diagnostic panel, an actual physical screen with buttons. "Watch this." He initiated a simulated cascade failure in one of the reactor subsystems. The Federation engineers' horror turned to fascination as they watched the human response protocols in action. Mechanical backups engaged instantly. Analog systems took over for digital ones. Even if every computer on the ship failed, the Indomitable could still maintain basic power and life support through purely mechanical means. "Your quantum cores are more efficient," Ravi acknowledged. "But what happens when they fail?" "They don't fail," Vex stated firmly. "Our systems are perfect." The conversation was interrupted by a station-wide alert. The pirates' captured vessels, now docked in the Federation Station's secure bay, were showing signs of unexpected quantum core destabilization. "Perfect, huh?" Ravi grabbed his repair kit, a collection of what looked to the Federation engineers like museum pieces. "Come on, let's see how your perfect systems handle sabotage." The scene in the dock bay was chaos. Federation technicians struggled to contain cascading quantum failures as the pirates' final surprise revealed itself. The ship's cores were locked in a feedback loop, building toward what would be a catastrophic release of energy. "Our containment fields aren't working," Vex reported, her form flickering with increasing distress. "The quantum harmonics are too complex." "Then stop trying to contain it with quantum fields," Ravi suggested, already pulling tools from his kit. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." "Captain," requesting permission to do something incredibly crude. Captain Thompson's voice crackled over the comm. "Try not to embarrass our hosts too much, Chief." Ravi turned to the Federation engineers. "I need every piece of heavy metal plating you can find, and I need it 5 minutes ago." What followed was a masterclass in what the Federation engineers would later term emergency primitive engineering. Ravi and his team constructed a makeshift Faraday cage around the destabilizing cores, using manually welded metal plates, and most shockingly to the Federation observers, actual water as a radiation shield. "This is impossible," Vex whispered, watching as the crude containment system somehow managed to dampen the quantum fluctuations. "You're using basic materials to contain advanced quantum effects." "Physics doesn't care how advanced your technology is," Ravi replied, monitoring the core's stability through an analog gauge. "Energy is energy, radiation is radiation, and sometimes a big chunk of metal is exactly what you need." As the crisis subsided, Captain Thompson arrived in the bay, accompanied by Admiral Corrin. The Federation leader's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been embarrassment. "Your engineers saved this station," she acknowledged, "using methods that our finest minds would never have considered." "That's because your finest minds have forgotten something important," Thompson replied. "The universe doesn't grade on elegance, it grades on survival." In the days that followed, Federation engineers found themselves in the unexpected position of learning from their primitive human counterparts. They watched in fascination as Ravi's team demonstrated repair techniques that didn't rely on quantum manipulation or perfect crystalline structures. "See, that's your problem right there," Ravi explained to a group of attentive Federation apprentices as he manually repaired a power conduit. "You've built everything to work perfectly, which means you've got no fallback when perfection fails. Humans, we assume everything will fail eventually. We plan for it. We build with it in mind." The implications of this philosophy began to ripple through Federation engineering circles. Ships that had once been pure expressions of quantum engineering started incorporating backup systems, crude by their standards, but undeniably effective. "It's not about going backwards," Ravi insisted during one particularly heated debate. "It's about remembering that newer isn't always better. Sometimes the old solutions are the best ones." Admiral Corrin found herself spending more time in the Indomitable's engine room, watching as human engineers demonstrated principles that her civilization had abandoned centuries ago. The ship's systems were a symphony of steel and steam, electricity and nuclear fire, each component designed not just to work perfectly, but to fail gracefully. "Your civilization chose a different path than ours," she observed to Captain Thompson. "We reached for the stars through quantum mechanics and perfect crystalline matrices. You clawed your way up with steel and determination. And both paths got us here," Thompson replied. "The question is, what can we learn from each other?" The answer to that question would soon become apparent as a new crisis loomed on the horizon, one that would require both human resilience and Federation elegance to overcome. But for now, in the Indomitable's rumbling engine room, two civilizations began the careful process of learning that progress wasn't always a straight line forward. Sometimes, it required a step back to move ahead. Commander Anna Torres of the Indomitable's Combat Operations Center had seen many expressions of disbelief during her career, but watching a crystalline alien's form literally shatter with shock was a first. "You want to do what?" Lieutenant Commander Nexel's newly reformed crystalline structure vibrated with alarm. "We're going to bait the pirate fleet," Torres repeated calmly, gesturing to the tactical display, "right into the system's asteroid field." The crisis had escalated faster than anyone predicted. Vector, the pirate leader, had escaped custody during transfer, stealing an experimental Federation vessel. Now he commanded a fleet of 30 ships, all running corrupted versions of the Federation's most advanced technology. "Your ship cannot possibly maneuver through such dense debris," Nexel protested. "Our quantum sensors can barely map safe passages at low speeds." Torres smiled. Who said anything about sensors? The Indomitable's response to the pirate threat defied every principle of modern space combat. Instead of relying on quantum mapping and AI-predicted flight paths, Torres had her crew manually plotting courses through the asteroid field, using what she called Mark I eyeballs and centuries of human experience with Newtonian physics. "Impossible," Nexel whispered, watching the massive human vessel thread between rocks that could shatter it instantly. "Your species flies through asteroid fields by sight. We also juggle nuclear reactions and play chicken with black holes," Torres replied. "You'd be amazed what humans can do when we stop relying on perfect solutions." The trap was sprung with brutal efficiency. As Vector's fleet pursued the seemingly primitive human vessel into the debris field, they found their advanced sensors overwhelmed by the chaotic environment. Their perfect quantum shields, designed to stop energy weapons, proved useless against simple kinetic impacts from tumbling space rocks. "Primitive," Vector's voice crackled across all frequencies, "doesn't mean stupid. Your crude tactics won't save you from superior technology. No, Torres agreed, but this might. She gave the order that made even her own crew pause. Release the mining charges. The Indomitable had spent its time in the asteroid field doing more than just running. Its crew had been seeding the rocks with simple fusion mining charges, crude but devastating devices normally used for breaking up asteroids for mining. The resulting chain reaction transformed the debris field into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma and hypersonic fragments. Vector's advanced shields, optimized for deflecting energy weapons, couldn't cope with the sheer chaos of physical debris moving at relativistic speeds. Sometimes, Torres broadcast to the surviving pirate ships, "The most elegant solution is a really big hammer." Federation High Command was in turmoil. The tactical data from the asteroid field battle had shattered centuries of military doctrine as thoroughly as the pirates' fancy shields. Admiral Corrin stood before the Federation Council, her form steady despite the controversy she was about to unleash. "We propose a complete restructuring of our defense forces, incorporating human engineering principles." The chamber erupted in protests. Council member Zax's form pulsed with particular outrage. "You suggest we abandon our technological superiority to embrace primitive solutions." "I suggest," Corrin countered, "that we learn from a species that never forgot the fundamentals of survival." The evidence was irrefutable. Human primitive technology had proven remarkably resistant to the very quantum-based weapons the Federation had considered unbeatable. Their crude but effective solutions had saved countless lives during the crisis. Chief Engineer Ravi had been invited to demonstrate the principles behind human engineering philosophy. He stood before the council, surrounded by actual physical tools that made many members recoil. "The problem isn't your technology," he explained. "It's your assumption that more advanced always means better. You've built perfect systems that fail perfectly. We build imperfect systems that fail gracefully." The revolution in Federation military thinking began not with quantum mechanics, but with steel and steam. New hybrid vessels emerged from the shipyards, their crystalline cores now protected by layers of physical armor. Emergency systems included both quantum processors and mechanical backups. Most shockingly to traditional Federation engineers, these new ships incorporated actual human-style manual controls. The ability to fly by sight, to fight without perfect sensor data, became mandatory training for Federation crews. "Your civilization reached for perfection," Captain Thompson observed during a joint training exercise. "We aimed for resilience. Turns out the universe needs both." 1 year after the asteroid field battle, the Indomitable docked at the Federation's premier shipyard. The vessel that had once been dismissed as primitive now drew crowds of eager engineering students, its battle-scarred hull a testament to the marriage of human determination and Federation technology. The ship had changed, incorporating carefully chosen Federation advancements while maintaining its core human engineering principles. Quantum sensors now supplemented traditional optical systems. Crystalline power matrices worked alongside nuclear reactors, but the manual overrides remained, and the hull was still solid metal. The greatest mistake in technological development, Captain Thompson addressed a class of Federation cadets, is assuming that advancement only moves in one direction. Sometimes you have to step back to move forward. In the station's engineering bay, Ravi worked alongside Federation technicians, teaching them the art of what they now called practical engineering. Simple tools and complex quantum manipulators sat side by side in their toolkits. "Every system must pass the Murphy test," he explained to his students. "If something can go wrong, it will. Build accordingly." The Federation had changed too. Their once perfect crystalline vessels now sprouted armor plates and backup systems. Their crews trained not just in quantum mechanics, but in basic physics and manual repair techniques. "We reached for the stars with pure technology," Admiral Corrin reflected, watching a new class of hybrid vessels emerge from the shipyards. Humanity crawled there with steel and determination. Both paths led to the same place, but with very different lessons learned. The pirates, Those that survived found themselves facing a new kind of Federation vessel. Ships that combined quantum shields with physical armor, advanced AI with human intuition, perfect crystalline structures with imperfect but reliable mechanical backups. In the end, it wasn't about primitive versus advanced. It was about remembering that the universe doesn't care about elegant solutions. It only cares about what works when everything goes wrong. The Indomitable remained a symbol of this new philosophy. Not the prettiest ship in the galaxy, not the most advanced, but a bridge between two approaches to the stars. Its scared hull and hybrid systems reminded both humanity and the Federation that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and sometimes the best way forward was to remember where you came from. As Captain Thompson often told new crews, space doesn't grade on elegance, it grades on survival. And sometimes survival means keeping a wrench handy, even when you have a quantum manipulator. The future of both civilizations would be built not on perfect technology or crude determination alone, but on the understanding that true advancement meant knowing when to use each. The stars didn't care how you reached them, only that you were prepared for what you found when you got there.